about some of my favorite series that I read over the last year-ish. I do have notes on everything because I have the memory of a goldfish, but I do remember loving them at the time and still love some of them now, so I'm going to talk about them. Okay, so they all have romance in them, but I feel as though in Two and a Half, romance isn't like the main genre. So if you want variety, semi-variety, we should have it here. First, I'm gonna start off with Once Upon a Broken Heart series. This series right here, literal chokehold. Like, I could not stop reading them. I think I read them all like back to back to back. I remember reading this one and then going to pick this one up like the next day, which is why it's hardcover and doesn't match the paperback, because that was the only thing that was available when I was desperate. I'll go by book. This is by Stephanie Garber, and she does have the Caraval series. I did read book 1 and I didn't love it, and I read it after this whole series. This series takes place after the Caraval, and I think you meet some characters. I heard you met Jack. But anyway, we're talking about this series here, Once Upon a Broken Heart series. The first book, I was blown away. It was like a complete new universe to me, and I love fantasy, supernatural. Like, I just love books that take you to a complete different universe, and this was one that I had never read anything similar to it before, so I was very excited by this whole universe. I literally can't even speak. I don't really like to spoil what books are about, but I guess I'll give you a little. When you read the synopsis, the book is just so much bigger and better than even the synopsis, so I would definitely just recommend going in blind. She goes to the King of Hearts to help her make a bargain because she believes in true love, and the love of her life is going to marry somebody else. So she makes a deal with him, and then it just takes place from there. Like, you literally just couldn't even imagine what happens based on the synopsis. Book 2, The Ballad of Never After. Sorry, this one was more action-packed, I believe, than the first one, because you already know, the characters, the background. Is just easier to get into the plot of the story, and this one left off on a cliffhanger, I think. Yes, I said it was a perfect cliffhanger, and I used to hate cliffhangers. Sometimes now, depends on how it's done. I used to hate them regardless, but this one, I was the perfect cliffhanger, because like I said, I went to the store the next day and bought the third book in this series. Like, it had me, the grip was so strong that it had me. I loved it. And there was also like a twist at the end. Last book, The Curse of True Love. Third book, I did write that the first half, I feel like I wish there was more action, because everything unfolded in the second half of the book, which, makes sense. It's the third book of the series. You need like conclusion, but I feel like the first half, I wanted more action. I wanted just more things to happen. All around this series, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It has a lot of adventure in it. It has romance as well. You just never really know what's happening, and which I love, because some books, it's like certain romance books, you can guess what's gonna happen. So I really enjoyed that this one I never knew. So 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5, I recommend Once a Broken Heart series. Next is a series that had like some controversy around it, and there wasn't people who loved it, but I did. And this is not a completed series. The last one was. This one's not completed. I believe book 3 comes out in April. I'm like 95% sure, because I need it now. We have Powerless series. Is that what the series? I don't know what the series is called, but by Lauren Roberts. I don't even like to buy hardcover books, and I feel like I really like a book if it's hardcover, because that means like I had to get it at that time. We have Powerless and Reckless. I'll talk about them both individually, but all around, I loved. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed this so much. I loved the banter between Peyton and Kai. I loved like the universe that was created. I loved how the FMC was like a straw, like she stood by her, her values and what she believed in, and I love that, because sometimes you read a book and the FMC is a little bit of a pushover. Peyton was not, and I love that she stayed loyal. I literally just said that but it's in my notes that she stayed loyal to what her beliefs. This book, a lot of people were comparing it, I think it was to like the Hunger Games or something. I never read the Hunger Games. I've seen all the movies, which I know isn't the same. I wasn't really getting that. Like, I don't know. I love this book. I had like complete blinders on. I absolutely loved the universe. Again, I don't really want to spoil it. This book is basically like there's ordinaries and then there's elites, and elites have powers, so they're kind of supernatural, if you will. And then there's ordinaries, and Peyton basically gets thrown into deadly trials, or I think they call it purging trials. And yeah, she has to pretend that she has powers that she doesn't have. So in a sense, I could see where people say the Hunger Games kind of vibe, but to me, it was different. I wasn't even thinking about that when I read it. I literally absolutely loved it. I love books that have like deathly trials in them, and this one did not disappoint. And then Reckless, 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5, like perfect. Like I literally love this book. I just don't know what else to say. Loved like the drama in there, the storyline, the heartbreak, the action, the plot twist. My jaw was like on the floor when I read the last, like how the book ended. And again, I saw some people like on TikTok did not like the ending at all. They were not having it. Like I went on TikTok after I read the book because I don't like to have other people's opinions skew mine. So after I was like in love, I go on TikTok and then I just see people are like, not having it. That twist was not it. But me personally, literally favorite book I've read all year. I actually don't remember when I read these books. So actually, let me see when I read this because I don't remember. Okay, so I read them both last year, August, and then in November. So my favorite books that I read in 2024. Next, I have another series that I'm currently in the middle of. I thought it was a trilogy, but it turns out there is 4 books. The 3rd book came out in 2020 and the 4th book has yet to come out. Because there's such a big gap, I thought the series was completed, but upon further investigation, it is not. So this is an ongoing series as well. This one is the origin novel series. I don't know. I never know what series are called. It's so bad. But this first one's called The Darkest Star, and then the second one is called The Burning Shadow. I just finished reading this book 2 days ago, so it's very recent in my head, which is good because my memory is so bad. So at least I'll, remember the feelings I had while reading this book. The first book I gave a 9 out of 10, which comparable to my scale now is probably like a 4.5 out of 5 for this specific book. I loved it. Literally loved it. Like I said before, I love like supernatural books, and I have read a good amount of them, and I've never read any with Lucian or Luxin. I think it's Luxin. So they're like a new supernatural creature, which I love because again, I read, all the vampire werewolves, blah, 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 blah type of books. So I love that there's a new supernatural creature. This book ended on a cliffhanger, which like I said before, I used to hate that, but I feel like this cliffhanger, it wasn't bad. Now the second cliffhanger, literally in the middle of a freaking conversation, the book just ends and I'm like, hello? But for this cliffhanger, I didn't mind it too much. This is like a supernatural romance. Like romance is in the book and it does happen and it does continue to develop throughout the series, but I feel like it's almost a subgenre because the main point of the book, like the world's coming to it. It's not coming to an end, but it's on the verge of like a war. And so it's way more focused on characters living and like trying to save the world as they know it kind of. So the romance, like I said, it is in there, but it's not the first genre, I would say. And then the second book, The Burning Shadow, obviously the storyline just continues. You take place from the cliffhanger, which I want to spoil it so bad, but I'm not going to. I will say she did get on my nerves sometimes. There were some points where it's like, ugh, she just being like so stubborn and so like, but I also see it because if I was in her situation, there's no way I would handle what she's handling at the age of 17 as well as she is. So I gave her some grace with that. Normally if characters like annoy me a little bit, I will lower the ratings, but I, gave her a pass because of her life is a mess, basically. I will say there was a lot that was happening in book 2, so it wasn't that easy of a read. I did read it in like 3 days, which is still pretty fast, but I felt like there was times where I'm like, okay, I need to take a break because something crazy just happened. And then as I would like continue to read on, something crazier would also happen. So I felt like this book was very entertaining, a lot of action packed, but I wouldn't necessarily say it was like the easiest read, but still I'd recommend it. All around, I would give this series like a 4.5 out of 5. The last series I'm going to talk about is a completed series. This is the Crazy Rich Vampire series by Geneva Lee. So this one is a romance series. It is a vampire series. So again, there's supernatural, which I just realized happens in all of these books. Clearly, I love supernatural books. So this one is a romance, but it also has like action in it, adventure, I guess you could say. Book number 1 was my second favorite of the series. Book number 2, I didn't like as much as book number 1, but book number 3, book number 3 was my favorite. And then book number 4 is the conclusion, but also was my least favorite of the series. So all around, I think I would give this a 4 out of 5. If someone asked me like a series recommend me today, this would not be my first, but it did have me in a chokehold at the same time. This book takes off with Julian MMC offering Thea, the FMC, a deal that she could not resist. Basically, Crazy Rich Vampire obviously offers her a lot of money to pretend to be his lover so that he has someone to go to events and stuff like that with. And then obviously they develop real life feelings, and then the series takes off from there. This one did leave off on a cliffhanger, so we know how I feel about those. Book number 2, it did progress. Like, I feel like the storyline in the universe did progress. It was another cliffhanger ending. This book specifically reminded me of Twilight. I have that in my notes. Do I remember how it reminded me of Twilight? No, but it did at the time. Book 3 was I'm literally so hot. I need to take this jacket off. 3 was my favorite in the series. I felt like the characters in this book I really loved, had me on the edge of my seat. I can't really talk about book 3 and 4 because I don't want to spoil what happened, but basically a human and a vampire fall in love and she gets drawn into that world and all the expectations that being a vampire, being a crazy rich vampire specifically, has. And yeah, they fall in love and you go through that story. I don't know if that was a good way of explaining it all, but it was interesting. Like I said, all around I gave it like a 4 out of 5. I would recommend if you like supernatural romance books. So those are some of my favorite series that I've read over the last year or so. I do have a couple other series that I just didn't mention, obviously, so maybe I'll do a part 2 for this video, but hope you enjoyed it.